Welcome to the Fantasy NASCAR podcast. Please go to racefortheprize.com. And once you go to racefortheprize.com, you can click on this Brandon Cruz logo right here. That will take you to the Patreon, and that is patreon.com/Brandon Cruz DFS. And then you can make the biggest decision of your life, which is to support myself and to support Brandon Cruz and all the work that we're providing for you. But not just provide us with support, you get access to all the tools and resources and content that he provides, and the tools and resources and content that I provide as well. You get that by signing up at the Patreon. That is patreon.com/Brandon Cruz DFS. Or the easiest way to get there is just go to racefortheprize.com, click on the logo. What I want to show you is that, yes, you get access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet, and you can look at all the endless amounts of practice data that it will be available. I mean, you've got lap-by-lap data for all these different races. I know Daytona probably doesn't mean much to you, but it is pretty significant and neat to see lap-by-lap data and lap averages and all this information. It may not help you at a plate race, but it's going to help you at subsequent races, at intermediate tracks, at short tracks, at Xfinity races, at truck races. Think it's probably going to be useful. It's worth considering. Even if you're like, I don't want to pay for anything, at least consider visiting the website, looking at it, thinking about it, watching this video. Thank you for watching this video and considering it. But what I want to show you here is not the practice data. It's not the track history. It's not the current form. It's not the projections, although you're going to get all of that. It's not the optimizer built into the spreadsheet that will help you build optimal lineups, which you can manipulate and change however you want. You can adjust the projections and run the optimizer, lock certain people in, exclude certain players, do a million different things with this spreadsheet. What I want to show you is that not only is there a mass entry tool built into this spreadsheet. What do you mean there's a mass entry tool? You want to enter 150 lineups based on my projections? Do you want to enter 150 lineups based on your projections and you don't want to spend whatever it costs for Fantasy Cruncher or whatever those? Well, guess what? It's built into the spreadsheet. But that's not what I'm here talking about. What I'm talking about in this video is not just the optimizer. It's not the mass entry tool or the practice data or the track history or the current form or the projections or Cruz's analysis or access to his Discord. What I want to talk about is the fact that you can use the mass entry tool here in the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet to actually drum up some projections. What? Yes, that's right. People make this big deal about projections. Let me show you how you can easily do a quick run modeling of what will projected ownership be for a specific race. That's included? Yes. I mean, there's basically everything is in this thing. Anyway, so let's say you have access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet. We'll use the Daytona sheet to give you an idea. We've got qualifying data. We've got pricing. We've got an early idea of projections. These are my projections, my first run. I will change them eventually, but you can see kind of where I am early. You can adjust them, do whatever you want. How you would do this. So here I am on Super Page. I go all the way to the right, and the furthest tab to the right is the MME tab. And here it is, just a bunch of blank numbers. What you would do is simply copy this data. So I just select all by clicking up here in this big box right there. Right click, copy. Now, from there, I go back into the Access folder with all the stuffs, and it says Tools, MME, and then I will click on either the Heavy MME, NASCAR 21, I need to change that to 22, whatever, or the Light, depending on your computing power, depending on the time that you have. I just ran the Heavy, and it went really quickly. Sometimes the Heavy, based on your computer, based on whatever is going on with Google, it takes 5, 10, 15 minutes. I just ran the Heavy spreadsheet. It took less than a minute, which was awesome. But if you don't have heavy computing power or for whatever reason something's not working, the Light version works as well. The light version does not run as many calculations. I'm not going to tell you specifically how it's programmed and how many equations it's running and how many formulas it's running. Just know that the light version is light and the heavy is very heavy. If you're running an old machine and you're slow internet connection and you don't have much time, go light. If you have heavy, then go heavy. So I went heavy. I have copied just simply that data from the Daytona sheet. Remember, I went all the way to the right, went to MME, and just copied this. This is pulling driver names. It's pulling their price. It's pulling their projection. If you have adjusted the projections for your own model, it'll change these numbers. This is based on my data. So I'm copying that. I have gone to the heavy sheet, open the heavy sheet, and what I do when I go to the heavy sheet is I click data, and I'm just going to then paste value that data in here. I'm not going to do this because this is a template and I don't want to mess with the template right now, but it's pretty simple. You open template heavy or you open template light, you click on data, and then you will paste special the value in. And that will paste in the data that we just copied. The next step and the last step to not only building 150 lineups, but also giving you an idea what projected ownership is, you then have to paste in the driver names and their value price, which once you paste that data in, this will be their names, this will be their price. So you'll just copy these two columns, and then you'll paste those columns right here. And then you just sit back and you let the sheet run its magic. Now, the heavy sheet will take some time. The light sheet will take less time, but it will work. It'll slowly go on in the background, and then eventually it'll start spitting out a bunch of stuff. It'll take some time to do, and then eventually you will get something that looks like this. So I pasted the data in here. So this data right here is the same as this data right here. I copied that, and I pasted it in here. And then what you'll do is you'll take these two columns, the drivers, which is B and C, just type B and C. You'll copy the driver names, you'll copy the driver salary, you'll go over to MME, and you'll paste it in right here. And once it's in, then it spits this out, and then you're good to go. You can see right here, it's giving me 150 lineups. I think I've got it set at 150. Yep, there it is, 150 different lineups if I wanted them. And I can just click on this export tab, and those are all the different player name columns, identities, or whatever. What do you want to call them? Driver ID numbers. You would just save that into a spreadsheet, export, import. You've got 150 lineups entered into. It's something fun. Like, I'm not a mass entry player. Then just do like the quarter arcade, do the dime arcade, have fun with it. Don't even do like you don't have to spend 10 grand or $1,000. If you want to go into the dime thing and just really start experimenting and trying to be a mass entry player, then there it is. It's included in the spreadsheet. But one of the neater things that I like is I just set, like, I've got, there they all are too. I mean, you can see the different lineups. You can see the different amounts of salary, projections, rankings. Right now, it's saying here's your optimal lineup, and your optimal lineup's leaving that much money on the table, blah, blah, blah. There it is. Fine. But what's really cool, and you can adjust this however you want, but this gives you a really quick idea of what ownership might be. And I just said, I didn't even really tweak it that much. I went really basic here. I'm not going to explain how this thing works if you're interested in how this works, but I weighted all the drivers the same. I will say that. So what I did here is I weighed everybody the same, which normally you wouldn't do. Normally you would try to base your weighting system on what people are going to do and what people are not going to do, but I didn't. I just weighted all the drivers the same, and which I thought was fine for this video. Here are the ownership. So it builds 150 lineups. It built 150 lineups, and Kyle Larson was only in 5 of those. That makes a ton of sense. It ran thousands of calculations, all these different scenarios and lineups, and only 5 times did Kyle Larson end up in the optimal lineup at 3%. Probably should be lower, but that gives you a pretty good idea. Like, hey, what is the ownership of Kyle Larson going to be for the Daytona 500? If I told you 3%, you're like, yeah, that sounds about right. If I started throwing these numbers at you, you'd say, yeah, I guess that sounds about right. I mean, look, these are the ownership of drivers that are starting inside the top 10. 3%, 7%, 3%, 3%, 3%, 9%, 3%, 2%. Ryan Blaney popping a little bit. That seems to make sense. He could win this race. He could score just enough place differential points that he squeezes into the optimal lineup. Not that crazy. As we start to go further from the starting position and we add the possibility, the probability of place differential, also, this is factoring in my projections. If you were to adjust and say, I don't think Kyle Busch can do that well, that's going to lower his point projection. And as you lower his point projection, he's going to slide into fewer optimal lineups. This is based on my model. Your model could spit something out completely different, but I doubt that you would be that far off. And you can see as we go further back and as we add the possibility of place differential, these numbers increase. With Bob Wallace, maybe 25% seems a little steep, but it gives you a general idea. Kurt Busch, 29. Ricky Stenhouse at 29. That seems a little steep, but you have to realize that it's based on my projection, which is very aggressive for Ricky Stenhouse. Most people are not going to be projecting Ricky Stenhouse to win. I have Ricky Stenhouse with a ceiling projection of winning. That is why that is so high. But you look at these and say, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense. Denny Hamlin, I just took my projection, threw it in the mass entry tool, pulled out the mass entry tool. So I've got this mass entry tool. Oh, it's cool. I can do multiple lineups. But it also gives me a general idea of what ownership could be. Denny Hamlin at 63%. Yeah, that sounds like, whether or not we want to agree, like that's too high, we all agree that Denny Hamlin projects to be the highest owned player. So you can look at this, and it's just a neat little thing. Like Jacques Villeneuve. It's not Villeneuve. Villeneuve. Now I can't even do it anymore. Just a neat little thing to mess around with. Look, great. BJ McLeod, only 8%. That makes sense. Kaz Gralla. I have Kaz Gralla projected low, so it's a little bit lower. But just an idea. Something to mess around with, something to have fun with. Hopefully it's helpful to you. If you want it, racefortheprize.com. Click on this. Go to the Patreon. Sign up for $40 a month. There are a lot of tools, guys. A lot of tools and resources available. Appreciate you guys supporting the videos, watching the live streams. Like the videos. Subscribe to the videos. Like the podcast. Spotify. Apple. Stitcher. You name it. Everywhere. Please go to DK Nation. Read the articles. Tweet, retweet. All of that stuff. Thank you. Quick one today, huh?